Oh, I thought it was coming up to midnight for the new year, and someone requested Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a music legend disappears into complete silence? What secrets hide in the shadows of fame? Well, buckle up, because what they just discovered about Roy Orbison will absolutely blow your mind and break your heart at the same time. For over 50 years, there was a mystery that haunted Roy Orbison's family and fans alike. A secret so painful, so deeply buried, that it seemed lost forever. But recently, his own sons made a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about the man behind those haunting melodies and iconic dark sunglasses. You see, Roy Orbison wasn't just the Big O, the master of heartbreak ballads, or the man with the most beautiful voice in rock and roll. He was a father who experienced the most unimaginable tragedy any parent could face. And what he did in response to that tragedy remained hidden for decades, until now. This is the story of how they solved the Roy Orbison mystery. And trust me when I say it's much worse than anyone could have imagined. But it's also a testament to the power of music to heal even the deepest wounds. Let me take you back to September 15, 1968. Roy Orbison was at the peak of his career, touring the United Kingdom and captivating audiences with songs like "Oh, Pretty Woman" and "Crying." He was thousands of miles away from home when he received the phone call that would change his life forever. His house in Nashville had burned to the ground. But that wasn't the worst part. His two eldest sons, Roy Jr. and Anthony, ages 10 and 6, had died in the fire. Can you imagine being on the other side of the world, hearing those words? The man who could make millions cry with his voice was now crying himself, facing a parent's worst nightmare. Roy immediately cancelled his tour and flew home to bury his children. The media was respectful, giving the grieving father space to mourn. But what happened next remained a mystery for over half a century. Roy Orbison simply vanished from the public eye. He didn't give interviews, he didn't perform, and he didn't release any new music. For months, the music world wondered where the Big O had gone. His record label was frustrated. His fans were worried. His friends didn't know what to say. But Roy wasn't hiding. He wasn't giving up. He was doing what he always did when his heart was breaking. He was making music. On January 21, 1969, just 4 months after losing his sons, Roy Orbison walked into a recording studio. But this wasn't his usual Nashville studio. This was a private space where he could pour out his soul without anyone watching, without any pressure to create hits or please record executives. What he recorded over the next 2 months was unlike anything he had ever done before. It was raw, emotional, and deeply personal. He called it his way of talking to his boys, his way of keeping their memory alive through song. But when Roy finished recording this album, something strange happened. He locked it away. He told no one about it except his closest family members. The master tapes were stored in a vault, and Roy gave strict instructions that they were never to be released during his lifetime. Roy's reasoning was simple but heartbreaking. He felt the music was too personal, too raw, too painful for the public to hear. These weren't songs meant for radio play or concert performances. They were private conversations between a father and his lost children, captured in melody and verse. Years passed, and Roy eventually returned to performing and recording. He remarried, had more children, and continued to create beautiful music that touched millions of hearts around the world. But he never spoke about that secret album. Not to journalists, not to biographers, not even to his closest friends in the music industry. When Roy Orbison died suddenly of a heart attack in 1988, most people assumed any unreleased material from that dark period had been lost forever. The music industry moved on, celebrating his incredible catalog of hits while the secret album remained locked away, known only to a few family members who respected Roy's wishes to keep it private. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn. Roy's younger sons, Wesley and Roy Kelton Orbison, grew up hearing whispers about this mysterious album their father had recorded. They knew it existed somewhere, but they had never heard it. Their father had died when they were still young, and the family had focused on preserving and promoting Roy's known masterpieces rather than digging into painful memories. As the years went by and both sons became adults working to preserve their father's legacy, they began to wonder about this lost album. They started asking questions, searching through old contracts and storage facilities. They were determined to solve the mystery of what their father had created during those dark months in 1969. The breakthrough came when they were going through their father's personal effects in a storage facility that hadn't been touched in decades. Hidden away in a dusty corner, they found a box labeled with their father's handwriting. Inside were the master tapes Roy had recorded all those years ago, along with handwritten notes and lyrics that revealed the true depth of his grief and love for his lost sons. When Wesley and Roy Kelton finally listened to these recordings, they were overwhelmed. They heard their father's voice, raw with emotion, singing about loss, about memory, about the unbreakable bond between a parent and child. They heard him struggling to make sense of tragedy, searching for meaning in the midst of overwhelming pain. But they also heard something else. They heard healing. They heard a man using his incredible gift to transform the darkest moment of his life into something beautiful and meaningful. They heard their father not just mourning his lost children, but celebrating their lives and the joy they had brought him. The album contained 12 tracks, each one a deeply personal reflection on love, loss, and the enduring power of memory. Some songs were gentle lullabies Roy had written for his boys. Others were powerful expressions of grief that showcased the full range of his legendary voice. A few tracks featured Roy experimenting with different musical styles, as if he was trying to find new ways to express emotions that regular pop songs couldn't contain. The most heartbreaking discovery was a song Roy had recorded on what would have been his son Anthony's 7th birthday. In it, he sang Happy Birthday to his child, imagining what the celebration might have been like if things had been different. The raw emotion in Roy's voice on this track was almost too much for his sons to bear. After discovering these recordings, Wesley and Roy Kelton faced an impossible decision. Should they honor their father's wish to keep this music private, or should they share it with the world as a testament to his artistry and humanity? They spent months discussing it with family members, music historians, and people who had known their father well. Everyone agreed that Roy had been a private person who rarely shared his personal struggles with the public. But they also recognized that this music represented some of the most honest and emotionally powerful work he had ever created. Finally, Roy's sons decided that their father's music was too important to remain hidden forever. They felt that other parents who had experienced similar losses might find comfort in hearing how their father had used music to cope with unimaginable grief. They also believed that fans who had been touched by Roy's other songs about heartbreak and loss deserved to hear the full story behind the emotions that fueled his artistry. But they were careful about how they approached the release. They didn't want to exploit their father's pain for commercial gain. Instead, they worked with music historians and Roy's former collaborators to create a presentation that honored both the music and the circumstances that inspired it. When the album was finally released, the response was overwhelming. Music critics praised it as some of Roy Orbison's most powerful work, comparing it to Johnny Cash's late career albums or Leonard Cohen's songs about mortality and loss. Fans who had grown up with Roy's hits discovered a completely different side of their hero. Not just the polished performer, but the vulnerable human being underneath. More importantly, the album provided comfort to countless people dealing with their own losses. Parents who had lost children wrote to Roy's family, thanking them for sharing music that helped them feel less alone in their grief. The songs became anthems for anyone who had experienced profound loss and was trying to find a way forward. But the story doesn't end there. The discovery of this lost album led to other revelations about Roy Orbison's life and career that had been hidden for decades. Family members and former associates began sharing stories about Roy's private struggles, his incredible generosity, and his deep commitment to his craft that went far beyond what the public ever saw. They learned that Roy had quietly donated money to help other families who had experienced house fires, never seeking publicity for his charitable acts. They discovered that he had written dozens of other songs that were too personal to record, poems and musical sketches that revealed the full depth of his emotional life. Most surprisingly, they found evidence that Roy had been working on a second personal album in the years before his death, one that would have explored themes of healing, remarriage, and the joy of having more children. Unfortunately, Roy died before he could complete this project, leaving only fragments and unfinished ideas. The revelation of Roy's secret album also shed new light on his other famous songs. Fans began to understand that tracks like Crying and It's Over weren't just generic heartbreak songs, but deeply personal expressions of real pain and loss. They realized that Roy's incredible ability to convey emotion through his voice came not just from natural talent, but from having lived through experiences that tested the limits of human endurance. Music historians started re-examining Roy's entire catalog, looking for clues about his inner life that had been hiding in plain sight. They found subtle references to his lost children in songs he recorded years later. They discovered that certain vocal techniques he used seemed to be directly connected to the raw emotional style he developed during those dark months in 1969. The impact of this discovery extends beyond just Roy Orbison's legacy. It has sparked conversations about how we understand and appreciate artists who use their personal pain to create universal art. It has highlighted the importance of preserving and eventually sharing artistic work, even when it seems too personal or painful for public consumption. The story has also brought attention to the lasting impact of childhood tragedy on families and communities. Roy's experience losing his children in a house fire has inspired increased awareness about fire safety and support for families dealing with similar tragedies. Perhaps most importantly, the discovery of Roy's secret album has reminded us that behind every great artist is a complete human being, with struggles and triumphs that go far beyond what we see in their public persona. Roy Orbison wasn't just a voice that could break your heart. He was a father whose own heart had been broken, who found a way to transform that pain into something beautiful and meaningful. The mystery of Roy Orbison's disappearance after his children's death has finally been solved, but it turns out the truth was more powerful than any theory fans or historians had imagined. Roy hadn't given up on music or retreated from life permanently. Instead, he had used his incredible gift to process grief in the most honest and direct way possible. Today, Roy's secret album stands as a testament to the healing power of music and the unbreakable bond between parents and children. It reminds us that great art often comes from great pain, but it also shows us that creativity can be a pathway through even the darkest moments of human experience. The next time you hear "Oh, Pretty Woman" or "Crying" on the radio, you'll know that these songs came from the same voice that sang private lullabies to lost children and transformed personal tragedy into universal art. Roy Orbison's mystery has been solved, and while the truth is indeed worse than we thought, it's also more beautiful and more inspiring than anyone could have imagined. His secret album proves that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to create something meaningful, something that can touch other people and help them feel less alone. Roy Orbison's greatest mystery turned out to be his greatest gift, not just to his fans, but to anyone who has ever faced loss and wondered how to keep going. That's the real Roy Orbison mystery, and now that it's been solved, his legacy is even more powerful than before. He wasn't just the Big O, the master of heartbreak ballads. He was a human being who experienced unthinkable loss and found a way to transform it into music that still moves people decades later. If this incredible story touched your heart like it touched mine, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear Roy's message of hope through music. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the hidden stories behind your favorite artists. These mysteries and revelations are waiting to be discovered, and together we can uncover the truth behind the legends that have shaped our world.